Testing. All right. You can cut out that other.
Hey, yo, aim. Yeah. Run it up, Blondo.
Hey, see y'all from Texas, where we should ride in swangers and put diamonds in our neck. Yo, what's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing tonight? It's your boy Doc Holiday. As always, we are back with another HBCU tonight, powered by HBCU Overdrive. Make sure that you like the stream. Make sure that you comment, share. Most of all, subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell to get everything HBCU Overdrive. So we got a good one for tonight before I get on my send-off to work at the, I would call it plantation, but it ain't. But get to work at Walgreens tonight, because
here's the forecast for tomorrow in Irving. Look for some.
Turn off Alexa, so she be interrupting me when I be doing my intro.
Getting started is as simple as asking a question.
Oh my God. But man, look, we are having a good time today. It is a happy Friday. How's everybody doing today? What's going on, Miss Natasha? How you doing? Aquay, what's going on? So let me see something. I gotta fix something over here. Anyway, man, we about to get this thing. We about to get the ball rolling. And before we do all that, we are going to What up? What's up, nephew? In 6 months. Oh, snap. I see you, gang. Anyway, before we get everything started, we'll take a quick commercial break, and then we'll bring our guest up in just a minute. We'll be right back as soon as possible.
Yo, it's your boy Doc Holiday with HBCU Overdrive, and I am proud to sponsor Merch Sports. Check out his new line of collection, the Black College Football Fan Club collection. It's basically designed to show support and give respect to the rich history and tradition of black college football. And as you already know, the best college players had to play at HBCUs before integration. So go ahead and check it out over at shopmerchsports.com. Merch Sports. Merch for the sports enthusiasts.
All right, we are back, y'all, and bringing up on the stage, man. It's he is our resident guru when it comes to FCS football. Of course, he covers all HBCU football with the gang, part of the HBCU nightly crew. But this is my little brother right here. We got Zach coming in on the stage. What's going on, man?
What's good, man? Appreciate you having me on the show, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. Now, first and foremost, the wifey is going to tell you you are Blue Junior because she is the original Blue over here. And she said, "Clock that." But
That's fair.
he said that is fair. Okay. But man, what's going on in the world of FCS football right now?
Man, getting into preview season, been super busy. As everyone kind of knows, it's me, Gerald, and Timothy Rosario over on the site. Coach Fred helps me on the YouTube side, but man, we got a whole spreadsheet right now. We're going through every single FCS conference doc, and we're writing that. We're compiling a list of every single returning player for every single team, their position, snap count, PFF grade. Like we're gonna have all the info for every single player coming back from the FCS. So man, it's difficult. Doc, you know this. I mean, the rosters not being updated in May make it impossible. There's some teams that won't update it till August. So doing what we can there is stalking players' profiles, messaging coaches, players, figuring it out. But we got about 9 of the 13 conferences done already. And we got most of the schools that have an updated roster updated done. And then we got our transfer portal tracker. Every single D1 transfer that's transferring to an FCS program. And we got it cataloged, snap count, PFF grade, all that good stuff.
Oh man, so you look breaking it on down. You got to break everything down because we are antsy over here because we are ready for football season to come up, man. So, of course, you being in Alabama and Mobile, where y'all say y'all king of football, but you know, be being here in Texas, we can't wait for everything to come out. So,
we try, but we can only work as fast as some of the SIDs allow us to, man. I've been reaching out to SIDs, and I get it. Look, because I mean, Doc, especially with like some of the SWAC SIDs, they're covering like 15 sports right now, and it's like, like, the last thing I need is to update the football roster every 4 days when a player hits the portal and signs.
Right. So let's go ahead and look. Let's go ahead and get into it. Players and teams to watch for in 2025. Of course, on the FCS side, when it comes to it, we always going to look at is going to be Jackson State first and foremost. They are the defending HBCU national champions, 12-2 overall, 8-0 in conference. TC going into his third year with oh my goodness, an overall record of 19-6, 19-6 overall record, and pretty much 13-3 in conference play. What do you see from what TC got going on? Him and Coach O.
I mean, man, I think they've had a good off season. I mean, but also too, it kind of helped for Jackson that you guys really didn't have any massive holes after a national championship run. Like there were a few key players you had to replace and maybe find some depth at certain positions, but outside of maybe edge rusher and interior offensive line, because you do lose Kirk and also Evan Henry, you would want to replenish some depth on the interior line. But Jackson's recruited so well that you had guys who were going to step up. You just needed more. You can never have too many offensive linemen and also edge rushers because you got to get to the quarterback. And I thought Jackson kind of addressed that. They go and get Kanye Varner from Alabama State. You get Nathan Rimbert that to already solidify a really good wide receiving core. You get 2 guys out of Tennessee State on the offensive line that played a lot, especially on the interior last year at Tennessee State, especially with Alex, right? I think Alex played somewhere around like 400, 500 snaps last year for Tennessee State. Multiple years at multiple games at center, if I'm not mistaken. Also depth at running back, right? I mean, because I think running back is probably the easiest position to replace. As great as Irv was, and this isn't a disrespectful thing to say to Irv, Doc, we even know in the NFL, even losing the number 1 running back in the NFL, you can replace that production somewhat, right? It's not going to just tank your team. So I think Jackson did a good job of bringing in some depth. I really like the kid, Keenan Christian out of San Diego State.
Yep.
Really think I'm not going to take it away because I do think Miller's going to be good. Aubrey's little brother. He'll probably be the guy that you want in between the tackles. I think Travis Terrell is going to be more of a gadget guy. I would be very surprised, Doc, if Travis Terrell got any touches between the tackles. I think that would
Right.
do him a disservice. He's so athletic and so good in the open space. Why would you limit him and try to get him hurt running him between the tackles? He should be a slot guy. He should be a gadget guy. And he's too good to keep off the field, but you can't just run him, 30, 40 snaps in between the tackles. You're gonna
Right.
get him hurt. So I think you're gonna see Miller, Christian, and then the other running back you guys added, Davenport for Louisiana Tech. He's
Mhm.
the guy who's probably going to be the like those guys are going to be the workhorses a little bit, I would imagine. But I really am excited to see what you guys do offensively. The one thing though is Jacobian's development, right? I think Jacobian was really good, right? We had him as a top 10 quarterback coming back this year in the FCS.
Right.
At the end of the day, if we're going to be honest about evaluation, there were times where it just seemed like Jacobian would not be in rhythm, and it got really bad because you saw them with the quarterback rotation early in the season throughout the first 4 games, right? That
Mhm.
rotation with him and McCoy, he never got his rhythm, and then you saw in the SWAC championship, they had to make a change, but then he ends the season on such a high note, winning Celebration Bowl MVP. I want to see, can we get 12 to 14 games from Jacoby and Morgan where he's playing at an all SWAC, all American level? If Jackson gets that with as much talent as they have, I mean, Doc, I've said it before. I think Jackson is the overwhelming favorite this year in the SWAC. But if Jacobian takes that step forward, man, the sky's the limit for this team, especially offensively.
Right. I've always said with Jacobian that if he look at tape of Vish Young when he was at Texas in 2005, that year when he just basically took over games that they couldn't, let's say they couldn't run the ball with the running backs. He took over games with his legs, and of course he made pinpoint passes. I think, I said it to him. I said, man, you might want to look at some Vince Young tape back, some old Vince Young tape, because you remind me of him because you're 6'4", you're 230 pounds. When you run, you have a stride. Your stride is like his. You don't have the speed like him, but you have that stride where you can be elusive and you can make folks think about, think twice about tackling you. So that's what I, put him in. But for him to pass for a little bit over 2,200 yards, had over 20 touchdowns passing, only threw 6-7 interceptions last season, a couple of touchdowns on the ground. That was a pretty solid year for a guy who's coming in being the actual, when he's playing an actual full season. And now coming into the season, him coming in as the full-time starter, he doesn't have to look over his back because there's nobody. I don't think there's anybody on the team that can challenge him, and the only one that can actually challenge him is him. So he's the one guy that has to make that engine go, because TC relies on him a lot to make the pre-snap reads, to make the adjustments, whatever he sees from the line of scrimmage and everything. What you say about Travis Terrell, running him between the tackles, you only want to do that maybe 5 or 6 times, but get him out in space, jet sweeps, screens, bubble screen. Just do anything to get the ball in his hands. And of course, him being in the return game, is crucial, because he was top 5 in the FCS in kickoff return. Losing players off the team, of course, from either through graduation or through transfer portal. Of course, like we lost Isaiah Spencer, who was the second leading receiver on the team. Losing him to Virginia Tech, yes, he elevated, but I really didn't want him to go to Virginia Tech. He could have been somewhere else. But that that's Josh, not hyper, Justin Fuentes. Justin Fuentes, that with that team right there.
That I'm not, and I'll say this. So I just want to reiterate it. So because I know how people clip stuff up and will say I'm talking about a player, but I'm not. This does not involve Isaiah Spencer, but I actually got a text tonight about a situation with another FCS player that had no intention of entering the portal. Signed the NIL deal with his FCS program, was on a playoff team. Like this team was in the playoffs last year. An agent reached out to him and said, "Hey, man, I've been shopping your name around just to see the interest. Here's the list of teams and what they're offering. You should sign with me and come get this money." He ends up signing with Virginia Tech and getting 6 figures.
Oh, wow.
So that should kind of tell you the business that, and I'm not taking a shot at Virginia Tech, but it's happening with a lot of FBS programs, but Virginia Tech was very active in tampering with a lot of top FCS talent.
Well, I know you said something in the chat like a couple of days ago that about tampering. We don't care. Like we know kids are going to look and try to go FBS because some kids want to do that. They feel like in their heart that they are worthy of going FCS. It's the fact that you got FBS programs coming in and tampering with the players on the FCS level. And then it's so crazy when you look at it, like I think we had a player from Division II, Fort Valley, go FBS. And that is a major, to me, that is a major jump right there. I think it was a defensive tackle.
Well, look at the QB from Ferris State. He went from Ferris State to Ole Miss.
Right. But do you really think that Trinidad Chambliss is an FBS quarterback?
I think G5, yes. He's not going to play at Ole Miss. Not at quarterback. I mean, that 4-star kid that came in, you remember the kid that had the one drive against Georgia when Dart got hurt? Bro, he was just carving Georgia up. And then didn't play the rest of the year. I forget the kid's name, but like the kid, I would be shocked if Trinidad's a starter. I thought now he has 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. So I would imagine maybe it's this, right? Because I do know another FCS player, Doc, who went to an SEC program to be a backup for a year, get the coaching experience and the money, and then he'll transfer out next year and go play his last year somewhere.
Oh my goodness! Oh, here you go, Austin Simmons. That is
that kid was a stud.
All right. Let's go ahead. We got Jacobian coming in, and like I said, from Jackson State, 12-2, 8-0 in the conference, SWAC champion, HBC national champion. Let's go ahead and take the talents over to the Bluff, over at Baton Rouge Tech. My bad, Southern University. I can't. I'm killing myself saying that shit.
That's nasty work.
That is nasty work. And Coach Gray's second year as the head man in charge of the Jaguars, he had a lot of turnover coming in, in that program also, but he has some players that's coming in into the program. He loses T-Set to Grambling, the arch rival. But you bring it. You have Jalen Woods on the. You have Jalen Woods as the backup. Losing Kendrick Grimes to Tennessee State, which I would have think he would have went. To me, I think he could have went G5, but going to Tennessee State, they need bodies up there. What is it about Coach Gray's in year 2 that you see that he can? You feel like he can make a run at the SWAC West?
Actually, okay, so because I know there hasn't been a whole lot of talk, right? Because they've been semi-active in the portal. They were really more active in kind of like the JUCO ranks than like the Division I transfer. They've landed a handful of guys here or there. But I'll say this: I actually really think Southern should be better this year than they were last year. I think they should take a small step forward. Now, I don't know how big of a jump, right? Because you were in the SWAC championship. I mean, maybe you're just you've run through the division a little bit more potentially, right? Depending on how the other teams progress. But I think they did. The two things I want to see them do is one, there's been a decrease in offensive line play. And this is something that I've talked to Southern alums and I've talked to former players about. When you look at Southern, let's go 5, 10, 15 years ago, Doc, I mean, you've been around the SWAC too. You look back, the one thing you could always say about Southern is, man, their offensive line play was good. They always had massive offensive lines that were physical, that were dominant in the run game. You've slowly seen a decrease in that, right? Especially over the past probably 3 to 5 years. I really think their offensive lines have taken a step back, but they've really added a lot of size, a lot of talent to that offensive line. They landed 2 guys who were 6'7 plus, 315. They landed some interior guys that are pushing up over 300 that have some experience at the JUCO level. Got a 6'7 transfer from Presbyterian that's pretty good. And then the other thing was defensive tackle. I look back at that SWAC championship, right? Kelby Givens was murdering off the edge. Like Jackson could not block. Jackson had no answer for Kelby Givens, and they didn't understand. They really were struggling to block the other defensive end, and I'm blanking on his name right now. I think he graduated.
Yeah,
but
he graduated.
The problem was you had 2 defensive tackles on the interior that were undersized. And when you have an Evan Henry, when you have Kirk Ford, when you have is that offensive line at Jackson, they just were getting dominated in the interior, and they didn't have any depth at defensive tackle, and they wore down. That's what Southern was missing, right? Because you do have Kelby Givens coming back, which it's funny, Doc. If anybody else in the SWAC returned a guy the caliber of Kelby Givens, who's a 2-time All-American, SWAC Defensive Player of the Year, going to probably be the consensus favorite for the Buck Buchanan, everybody would be talking about him. And you listen to all these preview shows, nobody's talking about Kelby Givens.
Nobody's not talking about him.
He's arguably been the most dominant defensive player in the SWAC the past 2 years. So, and I think if he puts a little bit of weight on, stays healthy, Givens is probably a shoe-in to win SWAC Defensive Player of the Year again, because he's probably, Doc, I mean, you can probably pencil in right now 10 sacks, 15 tackles for loss minimum for Kelby Givens next year. And what I like that Southern did, like I go down the defensive tackle roster they got Darren Scott, 6'3", 300 pounds. They get another guy, Bello out of Garden City, 6'3", 315. They get another guy out of Coffeyville that's pushing 6'3", 290, 300. They get another kid out of Pearl River, 6'3", 330. They get another defensive tackle out of Kilgore, 6'2", 300.
Yeah.
That's a lot of size on the interior, and it's something that they've really struggled with. Now, the question for me is, Doc, who's the quarterback? Personally, I don't think McCoy is going to be the starting quarterback. I think he's going to be a gadget guy. He's too athletic, right? You use him for packages where the quarterback has to run. If Jalen Woods can take that next step, and that's why I hated he was hurt in the SWAC championship, because that would have been perfect film for us, right, as media and people who analyze the game. How does Jalen Woods handle the moment in the vet against that Jackson State defense in a game, right? Doc, we were there where they were
we was on the sideline. We was looking. I was like, oh my God.
They were in it till the second half, right? Because at halftime it was a close game. So how does Jalen Woods respond in that moment? I want to see how he takes a step forward, and how does he look as the full-time starting quarterback at Southern, and how different does the offense look? Because him and T-Set were so different quarterbacks. Doc, you know, as an offensive coordinator, if I got an offense, right, me and you are co-OCs, how do we build the offense around T-Set, and then in the same week have a game plan? We take T-Set gets hurt, he gets taken out. How in the hell do we have the same offense for T-Set that we do Jalen Woods?
Right, they're two different, completely different players, two completely different styles of play. But if y'all don't understand, myself and Blue, Uncle Said, BJ, all on the sideline. We on the sideline. We always on the same side of the sideline, towards the south, towards what the south end of the end zone.
Yeah.
When we talk about Kelby Givens, like, dude was, I looked at him, I was like, this dude is massive. I know I'm a big guy. I know I'm a big guy. I'm like, oh no, dude. look, I had to shoot you if we was in a fight, bro. Uh, but yeah, he was giving Kirk Ford and Evan Henry. He was giving them the business in that first half, and then in the second half, what you saw was that the defense for Jack State turned up, and that led to the offense going ahead and getting started. Also, even with Zy McDonald as the backup coming in because of the injury to Jacobian, but with Southern coming in, you got with you naming out those defensive tackles, those interior defensive linemen, 6'2", 300, 315. That is the average right there. They are looking to be some space eaters and create. You got to create some sort of havoc, in the backfield, and to let those linebackers flow to the ball carrier. As we make our way, we're in the West. Let's make our way over to Texas, to Prairie View. Big talk. Big talk from T. Jackson. Tremaine, what is it about Prairie View? And I know Lionel said a lot of things about Prairie View, what he see this coming up year. But what is the thing about Prairie View that is different under Tremaine Jackson than it was under even Dooley and Bubba McDowell?
I mean, one, I think the obvious answer here is just injury, right? I mean, just energy, right? Is the fact that he's bringing. I mean, Doc, there hasn't been this much hype around PV ever, right? I mean,
I should know this. I have been to a Prairie View. I've been seeing Prairie Views for the last 30 years. And I never, other than hearing excitement about the band, I never heard this much excitement about the football team.
I'm telling you, I'll say this. I know a lot of people are skeptical because of the number, like the number of transfers they brought, right? But I'll say this. I mean, I don't think they're lying about that there are some really, really good contributors mixed in. And I do understand like Tremaine's point of, and it's kind of the same thing we saw with a lot of these recent rebuilds, right? Where you had the head coaching change. In this age of college football, Doc, you have to bring in new players because one, there's a lot of good players that leave with the previous coach, depending on what happened, or they find greener pastures in their mind. And you're left with the players that had nowhere to go most of the time.
Right.
Or couldn't transfer. So we're stepping into a losing program. Why would I keep a bunch of players that aren't that good? And why not try to flip the roster? Because we've seen it be done, right? We've seen it done in the SWAC recently. And I'm not talking about the Dion flip. We saw TC do it. TC flipped an entire roster of 60 plus, 70 plus guys that he brought in and recruited well. And you look back 2 years ago, I mean, are we calling Prairie View's recruiting class a loss? Like let's just say they go, I mean, because I guess it's a 12-game schedule this year compared to TC's year when he went 7-4. But let's just say he goes the equivalent of 7-5 or 8-4. And he finishes second in the West. I think myself, you, everyone in the chat would be like, it's a hell of a year, man. Tremaine was coaching. Like, and we'd be excited for the next year, similar to how we were with what TC and this rebuild was. But I'll say this with PV, they just had so many needs where you look across that roster and it's like, we obviously had to find a new quarterback. Running back, they returned some talent, but we need depth there. We got to revamp the entire offensive line. We have no playmakers on the outside. We got to find some guys on the defensive line. We lose our best linebacker, Aiden transfers to, I think, Texas State or UTEP, one of the big G5 Texas schools. And we got to revamp our secondary here. We don't have a lot of returning talent in the secondary. So I get why they added so many people, but you look at the amount of snaps that they added. Chaney Fitzgerald played almost 400 snaps last year at Campbell. Andre Dennis at wide receiver played almost 400 snaps at Lamar, was really good at Lamar. Trevon Jones at tight end played almost 400 snaps in Northwestern State. Malachi Williams was a starter at West Georgia last year and a pretty good one at that. You go get Dylan Spencer, who started his career at Jackson State, but started all 12 games at Central Arkansas last year, which was in the playoff race. didn't allow a sack last year. You had Peyton Talley, who was a top contributor at Princeton in the defensive backfield. So I understand the skepticism of some of the guys they added because we never know, right? Those FBS drop downs or bounce backs with 0 snaps or 100 snaps or 10 snaps, they can be really good, right? Or they could be a bust. But they added a lot of guys that had serious playing time. Cornelius Davis from Campbell. I mean, and the list goes on and on. And so I really do think PV is going to be a lot better this year, Doc. I just don't know if right this second, and this could change right as the rosters are finalized.
Right.
I don't know if I'm buying the PV will run through the West, but I will say this: I think PV is good enough to win the West next year.
Right, and let's not forget coming in from Valdosta State, he got some players from his off that team too that went to the D2 National Championship game. Of course, he ran into his nemesis over at Ferris State, who also had Trinidad Chambliss on that team as a quarterback. It was always said, of course, what we saw with Chennis Berry coming in last season, Division II coach coming in to a Division I program. Everything's bigger, faster, and everything. But to me, when you look at Division II play, to me, it's all the same. If you really think about it, it's just the only difference is we always say this: it's going to be the trenches. It's the offensive, defensive line. They might be a little bit leaner and quicker, but you get up here and you get with an actual good strength and conditioning program, you could get bigger and faster at the same time.
And like you said, I don't know if that like if you put that Benedict team that Chinnis had in like the SWAC or the FCS, they're probably average, like 500 team. Like they're not winning anything. But I'm going to say this. I mean, I watch a lot of football. Doc, if anyone watches D2 football, if you put Ferris State or Valdosta in the SWAC or the FCS,
they run right through it.
I'm not saying run through it, right? Because I don't know if either of those teams beat Jackson.
Last year. They'll make it them to me. Well, I wouldn't say run right through it. Let me take that back. They won't run right through it, but I think they'll make some competition.
Now, I'll say this: Valdosta would have been good enough to be in the SWAC championship, depending on the division. But I would say Valdosta would have been a top 25 FCS team last year. And I'll say this: you might be right about running through if you put Ferris in Division One. I'm just going to say Ferris would have been a playoff team last year, and I think Ferris was better than some teams that made the quarterfinals in the FCS playoffs, talent wise, like player for player. Their offensive line, there are probably 5+ playoff teams that would have traded their offensive line with Ferris's offensive line last year.
Oh yeah. So yeah, man. Let's keep ourselves in the West. We're still in Texas. Let's go down to Houston, 3rd Ward, Texas Southern. Chris Dishman being quiet down there. He's kind of quiet.
I know more than me.
He's kind of quiet down there. I know he did get a quarterback coming in from Kennesaw State. That should be able to compete and replace Jace Wilson, who was the newcomer of the year in 2023. If KJ Cooper didn't go down in that game against Prairie View, this would all be a whole different story about that team right there, because last season they were a competitive team. I see that. But they were damn near dead last in offensive output. Second to last in rushing, and almost dead last in passing yards, because even Valley had a better passing game than Texas Southern. Chris Dishman coming into year 2, we don't know what's going on with him. and the way, I guess he likes it that way. So I'm not gonna spend too much time on Texas Southern. Pine Bluff, we talked about Micah Hagens and Giovanni Gibson. They're gone. Don't know what Coach Hampton is doing up there to replace those two right there, but
they got a pretty good wide receiver. I'll say that. I don't know if he's going to be Giovanni Gibson level, right? Because I mean, listen, you don't find Giovanni Gibson's just sitting out there usually. But Jalen Witcher, transfer from Delaware, he started his career at Presbyterian. Doc, he set the school record at Presbyterian for receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns as a true freshman. Was an FCS All American. He went to Delaware, got caught up behind some really good players, and then they went FBS. It was just a whole thing. He kind of got lost in the shuffle there. I think
Right.
Jalen Witcher is going to be a really, really good addition for UAPB, but the problem is quarterback, offensive line, and every other position on that team.
Right. All the issues we're talking about the playbook being tampered with and everything. We got over that. And he's going into year 3, and to me, I feel like if he can't get it done in year 3, I think he's on that hot seat. I really don't say
I think it's done after this year.
Yeah, I really don't think if he could get at least, to me, if he could get 5 wins from the West, he might be able to stay, but I don't see 5 wins coming out of the West, and he
Like
probably
five,
get 2
like, are you talking about 5 wins total or like 5 wins in conference?
5 wins total.
Oh, okay.
You give me 5 wins total.
I thought you were talking about
no.
conference, and I was like, Doc, they're winning the West at 5. I was like, I think we way overestimate what we're getting here with UAPB.
Oh, no. I just said 5 wins, period. You get 5 wins, period. I think he stays 1 more year.
Because they're going to have 2 guaranteed wins because they play Lincoln of CA because they backed out of the Morgan game. And then they play Westgate Christian, who I don't even know who Westgate Christian is. I think that's NAIA.
Yeah, NAIA out of Houston.
So you get 2 guaranteed. So we're saying he's just got to win 3 games outside of that. And I mean, I don't know where that I don't know where that comes from because they don't play Valley this year either. So I don't even know who the other win would be.
Man, I don't know, man. So let's make our way down south. We go to North Louisiana, Grambling. They got a lot of issues over there. They got a lot of issues. They just put out something earlier today where they're questioning the athletic director. And they feel like if they're not getting anything done, they're going to protest. It ain't the first time these folks protested because it ain't the first time they protested. It might not be the last, but Mickey Joseph coming into his 2nd year, I think he had a little bit of promise. You get T-Set coming from Southern. You got Ty Keys coming in from the JUCO ranks over at Jones Community College. But other than that, they still had issues with defensive line. They also had issues with the offensive line, offensive play calling. Now, let's be real. Dooley called the plays last year. He's not there anymore. What can we expect from this Grambling team in year 2 of the Mickey era?
I'll say this. I've talked because I know some coaches over there, and I know some people who are close to the program. They are extremely confident in this offense. And I mean, maybe it all clicks, but I'll say this. I am kind of glad that Mickey seems to be taking over the offensive play calling. And I don't always love that, right? Like, I like that TC did it. I like that Mickey's doing it because if I'm going to go out, I need to go out on my sword, right? Like, it was so bad last year, and I made the change way too late. I put the trust in the wrong offensive coordinator because, Doc, I look back on that Grambling team. They had so much talent last year, and you saw the talent, right? I mean, the only team in the SWAC to beat Jackson, and Jackson was shooting themselves in the foot, but they were talented enough to take advantage of that, and they lost a lot of close games last year that if there was different offensive play call and different execution, they win some of those games, and maybe we're having a whole different conversation about Mickey Joseph and Grambling. I think one is going to come down to quarterback. I'm iffy on Keys and T-Set. I think they both have a ceiling, right? And you see it on film sometimes where they show the flash. They show the flashes, but there's no consistency with either of them. So I think that's a very big conversation, but I'll say this: they think their running back core is as good as the one about 2 years ago. Remember, they had all
Oh
the
my
kids go
God.
FBS. They think their
Yes.
running back room is that good, and I'll say this: expect Grambling to run the football regardless of who is the quarterback. From what I'm hearing, they are going to line up in like 12 personnel and just try to run the football down people's throats. And so I'm very excited to see how it works. Their offensive line is talented, and I thought they did a good job of replenishing that room. But it's going to be very interesting to see if that just run first, we're going to try to run right through you is going to work, because your offensive line has to be really, really good to do that. And you need the right quarterback to be able to make the throws when they're needed. Because if you miss on a throw, Doc, and you get in second, third, and long, all that running goes out the window and you're forced
Right.
to throw. And do you trust any of those guys to make the play? Defensive backfield also needed to improve. And I thought they brought in some guys that are promising some FBS transfers, but again, hit or miss out the transfer portal. So I'll say this: out of all the teams in the SWAC, I think Grambling's the biggest unknown for me, where it wouldn't necessarily surprise me if they go on a run here and push for the SWAC West, but it also won't really surprise me if they just are not very good next year and all these pieces that Mickey brought in just don't click together like we think they could.
Right. And we're talking about the same Grambling team that actually led the conference in interceptions on
Yeah.
defense. So they don't get it wrong. They were an opportunistic defense, ball hawks. I don't know if any of those playmakers came back this season. Because remember, for them to even be at that top, they had 5 interceptions against East Texas A&M.
Yeah.
That don't even sound right saying that, man. It don't even sound right.
That game was so ridiculous, by the way. Just going back and watching the film on that one.
Yeah, I was like, man, I wish I would have went. That Commerce is like probably like an hour from here. But like I said, I was gonna come down to who's the trigger man. So we go ahead and let's get to the reservation. Go to Alcorn. What we got for Coach Said and Coach Fred down there, man?
Gonna be a big year for Alcorn, because I think, you've heard it's kind of funny. I've heard expectations all over the place. I've talked to people who are saying 6, 7 wins, possibly 8 in a West title, and then you have people out here predicting like 2, 3 wins. Like there's like no in between here with Alcorn. When you talk to people, like there's one side that thinks they're going to be really, really bad, and another side that thinks they're going to be pretty good, right? And I think it's probably somewhere in between there. I'll say this: they added some good players in the first portal window. I really like the Reggie Davis transfer from Chattanooga. He was their starting running back last year. You got Jaden Bryant, offensive lineman from Norfolk State, played almost 700 snaps last year. Doc was a starter for a really good Norfolk State offensive line that ran the ball really well. We saw that against FAMU, some of the MEAC teams. Jarvis Rush out of Akron played over 200 snaps last year. So they got guys that played snaps. They bring back their top leading rusher from last year as well. I just don't know what, again, it's quarterback for Alcorn, and it's quarterback for a lot of the conference, right? We can talk about the conference as a whole and quarterback play and how it's regressed since the glory days of the SWAC. But Alcorn's biggest decision is quarterback. You got Jalen Tolbert in the room from Howard. You got some guys returning. You added the tall kid out of South Carolina State as well. I don't know if anyone there has kind of snatched the job up. And I think that's concerning, right? Because for Alcorn, early in the season, you got a big out of conference game against Alabama A&M. Like, you got some tough tests early. Northwestern State week 1. If you get out to a 0-2, 1-1, 1-3, 1-4 start, and you look down the schedule, you still have Jackson, you still have Grambling, you still have Southern, you still have FAMU. Man, like it could spiral out of control quickly. I think they're going to be good, Doc. I think they're probably going to be about what we see from Alcorn the past, however many years, where it's somewhere between 5 to 7 wins, probably 6 wins, and they're going to be in conversations early in November. It's just a conversation of, can they finish finally, because we've seen them be in these SWAC West title talks, and at the end of and since Fred won that last one, they've fallen 1-2 games short every year. They're going to have to find a way to finish in November this year.
That Tolbert move from Howard to Alcorn kind of scratched my head right there. I'm trying to figure that one out.
Howard seemed to like him. Like Howard fans thought he should have been played more last year, and he
Right.
really didn't. So I'll be curious to see. It's funny they kind of all have the same frame, right? Everybody in that quarterback room is a guy who has question marks passing, but are really athletic. So I'm very curious to see how creative they can be offensively to utilize all the athleticism they have in that quarterback room.
All right, go Valley. First year for Coach Buckley. Coming in, getting some players. He had a lot of players leave out of that program. Also, everybody. When you told me that Tajarian dipped out and went to Murray State, I was like, oh, they are in trouble. They did pick up a signal caller from New Mexico State. They getting a couple of pieces, but look, we're talking about Valley. We talk about Mississippi Valley. They got issues. They got issues everywhere that you go. So I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I'm just waiting on for Swag Media Day so we can ask some questions for Coach Buckley and see what his whole mindset, thought process is about his team for this coming up year. So we in the East, we go to Alabama A&M. Sam Shea makes that move from Miles College over to Huntsville, which some people say they don't want no Division II coach, but I've been saying, I said this for almost 2 years straight. Maynard's going to be gone. Guess who? Sam Shea is the next man coming up because he built that Miles program from almost the bottom, and they came in. They turned them into side champs and playoffs. You know, they was in the playoff last year. They even played the Valdosta team. And they played the Valdosta team in that first round. Yes, it was a blowout, but they still played it. But they made, it was a competitive game for them. But he comes over, he brings in arguably the second best arm in the SWAC in Mekhi Higgins from Pine Bluff. Still got Duke Miller at receiver, which really doesn't tell me anything. You lose Carson Vincent to the NFL, but you return a strong offensive line. Defense-wise, which was their issue, under Maynard the whole time, hopefully has been upgraded because Sam Shea is a defensive player. He is a defensive coach. And for those who don't know who Sam Shea is, watch what he did when he was at Alabama back in the 90s. He got a couple of players from that team. Antonio Langham on his coaching staff. What about A&M that we see? You feel like they could turn the corner this year because they've always been 6-7 wins in the East. What do you see about this team in year one for Sam Shea?
Okay, so I don't think they're going to compete this year. I think they might, be able to catch somebody, push for maybe third place in the East. But I think it's a year away. I do understand that they had a lot of individual talent, but a lot of that individual talent left. Especially some of the young talent that had like a breakout year last year. They hit the portal, and I think you saw one of their D tackles getting looked at by Georgia.
Yeah.
At one point, they had some guys who transferred out and got legit interest from a lot of top programs that you wouldn't expect from a team that struggled to win in their division. So the one concern I have is, they added a lot of D2 guys with a lot of experience. They go and add Mekhi Higgins, who has a lot of experience at quarterback. Him and Quad Brown should have a really, really interesting quarterback battle. I would lean Higgins there. I think Brown's ceiling is so high, right? And I think that's why the intrigue is there about what he can do for his athleticism and what he can do outside the pocket, extending plays, things like that. But in terms of just throwing the football, conducting an offense, and doing it in the SWAC at a high level, Mekhi Higgins was doing that at UAPB with one good wide receiver. So we have to put that in perspective here that he should have better weapons. He should have a better offensive line. He should have more help around him. So he should only elevate his game more. The other concern I have is that they really didn't add a whole lot of experience out of the portal in terms of Division One transfers outside of Hagen's.
Mhm.
Out of all their pre-spring additions, Doc, they only added they added 0 guys with over 100 snaps played last year.
Mm.
And
So
only
that's
one guy played 25 or more snaps, and that was the kid out of UAPB who only played like 80 snaps last year at UAPB at linebacker. So could it all click and it work potentially? But I think we're still a year away of having this conversation of Sam Shade having Alabama A&M compete for a SWAC championship. It should at least take a year because I don't think he did a good enough job flipping the roster to win it this year.
all right. So we go down to Bama State. Everybody keeps saying that Bama State they are a season away from being SWAC East champs, competing in the SWAC East. We saw what happened last year. We saw the first game of the season. Andrew Body runs for over 130 yards, but what happened? He gets injured again. Your second string quarterback gets concussed and decides to medically retire. You end the season with a fifth string quarterback who played receiver. They always hang their hat on defense because Rob is defense always. But those defensive guys that you had last season, majority of them gone now. Some took their talents elsewhere. Some took their talents up the road to UAB. The biggest, and I think the biggest subtraction is going to be the defensive coordinator. That's Ryan Lewis going to UAB. What about Bama State? We see coming into E-Rob's. This will be his third season coming in. Actually, his fourth season. It's his fourth season.
Yeah. I'll say this. I know this might sound counterintuitive from what we're used to at Bama State. I think their offense is going to be really good. They returned 14 guys that played 130 or more snaps last year, and that doesn't include Andrew Body. That's a lot of returning talent. And, Doc, they've returned 4 of their 5 starting offensive linemen from last year.
So they'll be heavy up front.
Yeah. And then at wide receiver, you return 3 guys that played over 300 snaps, 4 guys that played over 250, plus Kareem Key should be moving back to wide receiver too. So you have a bunch of experience at wide receiver, offensive line. Now the question becomes, can Andrew Body stay healthy? And that's the biggest thing, right? Because we saw the potential in terms of his athleticism. Like if he stays healthy and they don't do the stupid quarterback rotation that they did last year, they probably beat North Carolina Central in week 1.
They should have beaten.
Yeah, they should have. They should have. And so that's going to be the biggest question, right? And then also to running backs staying healthy. They returned 2 really good running backs. Like Jamari Holtzclaw was having a really good year till he got hurt last year.
Right.
So, I mean, I think their offense has the potential to be one of the better ones in the SWAC, which is promising, right? If their defense can live up to the hype of what we've seen. But like you said, I don't know what it looks like without Smith there running that defense. And also, too, Doc, you look at this team, they only returned 8 players that played over 150 snaps last year or more, and they only returned 1 that played over 350 snaps last year.
And that's on the defense?
Yeah, that's defensively. It was their starting safety. They have a lot of guys who I would say were rotational guys. Like they rotated a lot up front, right? So you have a lot of edge rushers that played 150, 200, 250 snaps because they were just rotating so many bodies up front. Do you have the depth now to do that?
Right.
Because that's why their defense was so good. Now, obviously, you had the first stringers were all good, right? You just go through the names that they've had on this defense, and they were really good. But the thing that made Bama State better than the rest of the SWAC defensively, they were so deep, and they were able to rotate guys, and a lot of their young guys were able to contribute early. And, Doc, when you have 4 or 5 edge rushers you can rotate in and out throughout the game, man, how good can that edge rusher be in the fourth quarter when your starting edge rusher has only played 30 snaps, Doc?
Yeah.
And he's fresh. And then he can go get the quarterback in the fourth quarter in a close game. So it's going to be all defensive for them. And then it's just offensive play calling, man. It's just been so questionable at times where, I mean, what are we doing? Like, why is Andrew Body playing slot receiver? Why is the other kid, O'Brien or whatever his name was, kid ran like a 6'1". They had him playing wide receiver at one point. Like, what are we doing? Why are we trying to be too cute? They should just run the football. They should play off of Andrew Body's athleticism and let him use his legs. And let's see where we end up. Because I mean, they won 7 games, Doc, with a wide receiver that weighed 100 and that wide receiver weighed 157 pounds, soaking wet. And they won 7 games, Doc, with a kid who did not play quarterback.
Oh my goodness. And to me, I'm looking at Chris Barnett. I have to look at him sideways though, too, going into year 2 with him as the offensive coordinator. But I'm also looking at him sideways because I'm like this: if you got a guy like Andrew Body on your team, would you want to go back and see what he did in those 2 years when he was fully healthy at Texas Southern?
Yeah, we would think so.
I would do that. Any coach in the SWAC would have did that. Any coach in the MEAC would have did that too. I mean, I'm just saying, if he would have went somewhere in the MEAC, they would have did that. Let's utilize all your talents that you have, and so that way we can make you, we can get you better and get you up there. Let's go down. Ooh, they got some mess. And I'm gonna talk about this a little bit later on. But let's go down to Tallahassee with FAMU. Year 2 for James Colsey. Had some promise with last season, but went 7-5, 5-3 in conference. Daniel Richardson as quarterback was the lead passer. He was the lead passer for the conference. But he's gone. A lot of players enter the transfer portal again from FAMU. They got a lot of kids coming out of the transfer portal from FBS, but do they have the snaps, the snap counts that that you've been talking about? 3 quarterbacks on the squad from FBS programs. Could have had a 4th one from Fordham, but he said, I'm going to decide to keep my talents at Kent State, which is nasty work.
Yeah, that was
tough. What about this team in year 2 for Colsey? Do you feel like he can make the jump, or he might be in a hot seat?
Okay, so I don't think they move on from him unless it gets unforeseen bad, right? Like they win like 3 games. Then yeah, they're moving off of Colsey. But I mean, Doc, can you fire a guy who wins 7-8 games and the only game he loses is Jackson State and he misses the SWAC championship? Or has 2 losses in conference, right? And he wins 7 games. 7-5. Like, are we firing 7-win coaches now? I mean, if we're in the business, especially, and this is no shot in the FCS, if we're firing 7-win coaches, we have to reevaluate where we are as just a subdivision. And especially in the SWAC, like 7 wins, you getting fired?
And that's a lot too. That is a lot.
That is a lot. I think we have to like readjust expectations here and just, I mean, anybody who's upset at 7 wins in competitive year 2 after Willie leaves and you have to kind of like revamp a championship roster, I don't know if firing a 7-win coach helps anybody. And if they do, the risk you take is if you hire a guy and he doesn't win the championship the next year, what do you do with him then? Right. And I think that's kind of, and that's why I get why they fired him, right? Because of things behind the scenes, but it's kind of the same thing happened with Southern, right? Where they got in this habit of firing coaches that just went to the SWAC championship the year before. And it's like, okay, well, now if Graves doesn't win the SWAC next year, Doc, do you fire him? Like you did Dooley?
I don't fire him. The Dooley firing was necessary because the ego got in the way. That
Agree.
was we talked about that. We saw that with our own eyes. The ego got in the way for him. But with Cozy, now if he can win 7 or 8, if he wins 8 games, you don't fire him. Leave him, let him stay there, because that's letting you know that he's building, trying to build a championship team. The only buzzsaw in the way is Jackson State. A close second will be Alabama State, because that's the closest other competition that that FAMU has. The real thing was last season was them losing the Valley. The other sting was going to Prairie View and losing the Prairie View in that manner.
Yeah, they look terrible. I mean, now lost to Bethune-Cookman, we might be having a different conversation. Like 6 wins and a bad loss to Jackson and a bad loss to Bama State and just any loss to Bethune, maybe we're having a different conversation, right?
Right. So
I just don't know if I'm there with them. Like, now, obviously, they lost a lot of talent, especially along the defensive line. Like James Ash leaving and things like that really hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
They also lost a lot of top contributors from last year, like Jamari Gassett's gone. They lose Gross to the portal at tight end.
Ace
I
Cobb is
mean,
gone.
yeah, so they just lost so much talent. And then at quarterback, I mean, do you feel for me, I'm not 100% sold on Tyler Jefferson, and maybe I'm wrong, and I'll come on the show and say I was wrong, because I was wrong on Daniel Richardson. I really wasn't sure. He ended up playing really, really well last year, and I was wrong on that evaluation, but Tyler Jefferson's kind of in the same boat where he's super unproven, but he's a way different quarterback, right? Because he has the size. The
Mm-hmm.
kid's like 250. I mean, so maybe he clicks, but I'll say this: if they were confident in Tyler Jefferson, I don't think they would have been recruiting CJ Montez and the kid they got from Toledo and pushing so hard to get a quarterback if they were really sold on Tyler Jefferson being the guy.
Right.
And I mean, I'll say this: they do have some solid additions. Justice Cross from Murray State was really good last year. Elijah Alexander from Stetson was as a defensive lineman, played over 500 snaps last year. Deion Villiers from Tennessee State was one of the top defensive backs for a playoff team last year at Tennessee State. Yeah, I really do like the Jalik Thomas addition from App State as well. So they added some talent. Jahan Myers from Kennesaw played a lot of snaps last year for the Owls. So they added some talent. It's just there's so many holes, man. If quarterback's a question mark in the SWAC, man, I can't pick you to win the SWAC with question marks at the quarterback spot.
Right. And last but not least, down in that school in Daytona, as our good friend Marlo would say, quiet as always. You don't hear too much about what Coach Woody is doing down there. So I don't want to spend too much time down there. They've been hit with the transfer portal also. They have some issues. Losing a game where you had the lead and you lose it to a Division II team, and not just a Division II team, a good Division II team in Clark, Atlanta, though, who, by the way, is in talks of winning the SIAC this year. Not gonna spend too much time on them.
They did have some good portal additions. Let's give them credit where credit's due. They get the quarterback from South Carolina State that a lot of people thought was going to compete for the starting job in Amari Jones. They also landed Timothy McLean from Arkansas State, who started a few years ago at Central Florida, was pretty good. I think he has a ceiling there. I mean, they get a kid, Isaiah Washburn from Mercer, was a rotational starter at edge linebacker for a really good team last year. Larion Davis from Charleston Southern was a starter at defensive tackle for them last year. And also, too, Javin Dames from Bryant at wide receiver was a pretty good wide receiver for the Bulldogs last year. So they have some additions, Doc. The problem is I just don't know what the mark is for. I don't know where Woody has to go, because I think he's on the hot seat. Is 3-4 wins enough to save his job? Do we have to get to 5 or 6? Like, where is the line that Bethune's going to draw the line on when you got to go in a different direction?
I think one of the lines is that he has to win the Florida Classic. They haven't won it since Terry Sims was head coach.
It was what, 2019? Was it 2019?
2019. if you can win 5 games, it's the same thing. Like I said for Pine Bluff. If you can at least win 5 games, not 5 conference games, just 5 games, period, that you keep your job for another year. But with Reggie Theus being the AD and the head basketball coach, but with Reggie Theus being the AD, now he's he got put on full-time AD hat because he doesn't have anything else to do. I'm doing a full evaluation on Woody.
I'm with, and I get what says in the chat. Like, they still got money on that contract, if I'm not mistaken, which complicates things so much in the FCS. Because the tough part is, outside of the swag, doc, it's really that's why you never see me do like hot seat rankings or things like that for the website or the FCS show. It's because there's so many FCS programs that are cash strapped. They don't have the money to fire coaches. So even if a coach sucks, they're just going to wait it out till the contract's up. But in the SWAC, you've seen some teams really pull the plug really quickly, especially like teams like Southern and Jackson who have the money to do stuff like that. Does Cookman have that money to do that? And also, too, here's what also plays a role into when you see coaches' decisions. And I've talked to ADs about this. The AD always has a short list. If one of his number 1, 2, or number 3 targets hits the open market, and you feel like you can get them, guess what, man? Well, we got to cut ties and pay what we got to pay, because I can't let my number 1 go somewhere where we can't get him from if we feel confident that we can land him where he's at, right? Because, Doc, what happens if, let's say, and this is unrealistic because there are 2 schools that probably aren't fighting for the same candidate. Let's say Bethune-Cookman really wants Coach A, but now Coach A is getting interest from Incarnate Word, Sac State, North Dakota State. It's like, if I'm Bethune-Cookman, I can't compete with those teams. So if there's rumored interest, we got to make a run here, because if he goes there, we're not pulling him out of any of those universities.
Right.
So we'll see. I don't know. I think it would be, I would say that he's probably number 2 on my hot seat list for the SWAC, though, if I had to put one out. Like, it would be UAPB, and then it would be Bethune-Cookman number 2 for sure.
All right, man. So we got Tennessee State playoff team, 9-4 last season, and Eddie George final season. He goes to Bowling Green. That team got gutted in the offseason. Then they make the coaching hire, and I kind of complained that they made it too late, kind of in a sense too late in the game with Reggie Barlow. But he's coming in to try to save face for the team. Of course, we already, we said about Kendrick Rhymes going up to Tennessee State. Who are some other additions that he brought, that Coach Barlow has brought in to kind of fill the team in with spots? You lose Draylon Ellis, he's gone. DJ's gone.
Yeah. You lose one of your top receivers. You lose kind of your whole receiving core there too. Offensive line's gone. I mean, Doc, they got to replace everybody. Like, they lost 22 starters plus more. I mean, everybody's gone from that team. So you're going to have a completely rebuilt roster there. I like the addition of Caleb McCreary from Troy at quarterback. Brendan Hale at safety from Southern Utah as well. Jaden Cook from Kansas State. Like, they got some guys who have some potential. They got a linebacker from Townsend. You mentioned Rhymes. You got an offensive tackle from James Madison. But, Doc, it just feels like it's just not enough. Like, there's just so much that you had to do. And I said this when Barlow was being rumored to have the job. If I'm sitting in contract negotiations, Doc, I'm telling them I need a 3-4 year contract that's really a 4 or 5 year contract, because the first year can't count.
Right.
Like, nothing that happens in the first year should impact how long I'm here, because it's an unwinnable situation this year. Like, if you win 1 to 3 games, man, congratulations. A hell of a coaching job there, because that's how decimated they are. And on top of that, too, Tennessee State was scheduling for the playoffs. Due to the conference, and also too, you had Eddie George, you had Brandon Fisher, you made the playoffs, right? So you want to schedule for the playoffs. Look at that schedule, man. Where do the wins come in? Like who are you beating next year?
Let me see, because now that one I haven't seen yet.
Bro, it is a brutal out of conference schedule, and when I look at where this team is in terms of talent, I don't know where it is. I think 3 wins would be an A+ year for this team.
Because I know they got A&T, they got
North Dakota State.
They got North Dakota State. They got Howard again for home and home.
Alabama A&M.
Ooh, that's a nasty schedule right
And then
there.
you got your conference schedule. You got Tennessee Tech, who's going to be really good. SEMO's been really good. UT Martin's won the conference like 5 straight years. Charleston Southern improved last year. You got a sneaky team like Western Illinois that had probably their best year in a while. Eastern Illinois won 9 games 2 years ago. They could get you any given weekend. So there's just so much uncertainty with this roster, Doc. And I mean, they just got a brutal schedule. I just don't know where the wins are going to come.
Yeah, I'm looking at the schedule right now, man. Oh my God. A&T first game of the season. Then they got North Dakota State. But at least the best thing about it is the first 3 games you have at home. Actually, the first 4 games you got at home.
I don't know if that's helping them.
Yeah, they help them, because then you got Alabama A&M coming in. Then you got a bye week, and then on September the 27th, Tennessee Tech comes into town. You go to Eastern Illinois in October. The first 2 weeks of October, you go to Eastern Illinois and you go to SEMO. Then you got Howard and Western Illinois coming in, and Lindenwood. Let's not forget about them either. UT Martin, you got to go to Martin, Tennessee. You got Gardner-Webb coming in, and you got Charleston Southern. You go to Charleston, South Carolina to finish out the rest of your schedule. That's a nasty schedule right there.
If you don't beat A&T, I mean, I'm just kind of looking around like that might be winless.
You better beat them now.
Agreed.
You better beat them now. Oh man, let's go ahead. Since we're still on Independence, A&T. Sean Gibbs, first year as a head coach of his North Carolina A&T, which he should have been a head coach before, because we've already said Vincent Brown was not that dude. What do you see from the camp in East Greensboro?
Going to be a long year, man. Everybody was hurt in the spring too. I mean, they're missing multiple players right now for injuries. Like that roster is just decimated right now. And I think he did a good job trying to bring in guys to compete. It's just, man, you're in the CAA where there's going to be probably 4 to 6, maybe 7 playoff
teams. Yeah,
like there are teams that are competing for the playoffs, right? And you'll probably get 4 bids out of that conference, and you still got to play Central out of conference, guaranteed. I mean, it's going to be a long year. I really think this year 1 to 3 wins is like, again, hell of a job, Gibbs, because I think Gibbs kind of came into it went the same in terms of Tennessee State, because Tennessee State just didn't have anybody on the roster, right? He came into A&T kind of similar to Tremaine if Tremaine took over a winless SWAC team. Right. I mean, there was no talent redeemable there. Like, you just had to replace everybody. And so year 1, I'm throwing away for Sean Gibbs, and they should be better, like a better team, right? Because they'll be better coached, but they're a long way from competing in this conference, man. Sean Gibbs is going to have to recruit at an extremely high level this upcoming season to get this team back on track for year 2. But Doc, there's going to be a lot of L's on this schedule, and there's going to be a lot of, man, that the one hire Vincent Brown set this program back maybe 2-3 years.
To me, I've always said this. I don't like it's kind of like what you just said about the Barlow situation with Tennessee State. The year one should just basically, it don't count. Let me just say it don't count, because I got to get my guys up in here. I got to get the players that we need to get up in here to be able to compete in this conference where 2 and 20 is it 2 and 22? The last 2 years? Oh my God.
They still haven't won a CAA game.
See, I won the CAA game. Get beat to sleep by Hampton. Yeah, it's a long road for them. So let's talk about Hampton. We got Hampton coming into the fray. End of the season. 5 was it? Was it 5 and 6?
Yeah, 5 and 7. If I'm
5
not
and
mistaken.
7. 5 and 7. Where they had some games where it was close. It was down to the wire. And let's just say they win those, those games, turn into go into their favor. Then you're looking at them winning at least 7 to 8 games, because most of those games were very close.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long year this year, though.
Oh my goodness!
I mean, not as long as A&T, but I mean, Doc, you're looking at a team that returns 4 projected starters next year offensively and 3 defensive starters, and one's like a we counted him as a defensive starter because he started for someone who got injured. Like, that's what you're getting. I mean, defensively, Doc, they have 6 players that played over 100 snaps last year. None that played over 600 snaps.
That's crazy.
And offensively, their offensive line should be okay. They returned 2 of their top guys in Jeremiah Orr and Amari Allen. Zach Perkins is back as well. Jalen Williamson. So you got like 4 starters on the offensive line. Your top tight end comes back. You've returned probably your second best wide receiver in Wimberly. It's just you lose your starting quarterback. You lose your number 1 running back. Where are the weapons at, right? And I think they needed to hit the portal hard. They really didn't do that in terms of Division I transfers. But I will say the X factor here is probably who they brought in at quarterback, and Isaiah Freeman out of Lincoln.
He's a bad one right there.
Yeah, 6'3", 200 pounds, athletic, can throw, proven all conference guy at the Division II level. So maybe Isaiah Freeman could turn it around. Maybe he's an upgrade over what they had with Chris Ellis, who transferred to Stony Brook. But weapons-wise, he's really going to have to bring some young guys along. And, Doc, just to kind of re-emphasize the point of the transfer portal not being great for all players, they lost a freshman All-American candidate wide receiver to the portal who still has not signed anywhere. He's just chilling in the portal right now.
Might was just going back to go back to Hampton
if they let him. But hey, everybody thinks the grass is always greener, man, and you're just gonna wind up out there in the portal.
Man, that's crazy. Now to the MEAC. We got some excitement up in Dover, Delaware State. Deshaun Jackson, NFL, one of the best NFL wide receivers I've ever seen. He used to kill my Cowboys. I hate him, especially when he played for the Eagles. But he comes in as first-year head coach. I don't see too much anything going on right now in year one for him. Lose Marquis Adams, who was pretty much the whole team last season.
Well, Marquis is back, if I'm not mistaken.
He's back. Okay, yeah. If he's back, now Jake Sutton, running back.
He gone.
He's gone. What can we see in year one for the D-Jack era at Delaware State?
Like, I get that. Okay, so part of me understands the hype because of the head coaching hire, right, Doc? We see it every year. Celebrity hire. Oh, man, he's going to flip the roster, run through the MEAC, all this. I just don't think people have, really grasped how big of a rebuild Delaware State is. Like, this isn't coming into a program that was losing with talent, right? This was a program that just was not very good and historically has not been good. To think that he's going to come in and win 6, 7, 8 games, come on, bro. Like, what are we realistically expecting from D-Jack? And then you look at some of the Division I transfers. He only has one player that played over 100 snaps at their previous institution in terms of Division I transfers, Doc. He only has one player also that's played over 11 snaps last year in terms of Division I transfers. So I don't know unless they're just going to roll this out later in the year and they've added a bunch of guys that they've just kept quiet. I still think there's going to be massive growing pains year one. Maybe they'll be more competitive, right? And we won't see the Delaware State teams that go winless in conference, and they'll catch one or two teams. But to think that this team's in any position to challenge for the MEAC, I think is grossly overestimating what DJ's going to do year one.
Yes, everybody, we're talking about the same Delaware State team that had, it says Guthrie, who's all SWAC. They had Savion Wilkinson, who's all MEAC, all SWAC. They had Matt Noel, who's all MEAC, all SWAC. Who else that came out that, came from that school that went somewhere else and they became all conference? That's crazy work right there.
Yeah.
That is crazy work. Head on down to Howard, man. Larry Scott. If Erica Lee was on here right now, she would say they need an OC. What is it? The OC, your head coach. So do you want to fire the head coach because he can't call a play? But we're talking about Howard. They regressed. They regressed big time last season. Of course, like I said, Jalen Tolbert is down at Alcorn. Jared Hunter is gone.
Yep.
You only
Casey
have
Hawthorne.
Casey Hawthorne gone. Ilya Raza gone. You had Eden James that's still there. I think that's the only thing that you got right there.
Kenny Gallup gone.
Kenny Gallup gone. Carson Hinton gone.
Gone.
You got a lot of talent from that team. It's gone. It's gone.
Robert Jones III gone. Xavier was it Rubio at defensive back gone as well. I mean, Doc, this team is just, they got so many. They probably got question marks at every single position right now. I think they got some promising edge rushers, but offensive line really regressed last year. And I mean, the problem is like it's hard to bring in transfers for like a Howard.
Yeah, because of the academic standards.
Just academically and things like that. So it's tough, right? And I think this is going to be the biggest test for Larry Scott's recruiting prowess. Have you recruited well? And we get back to how recruiting is the lifeblood of your program. Have you recruited well enough for these young guys to be contributors? Because in the MEAC, you have to win 4 to 5 games to be in contention for that title. Can you win those 4 to 5 games and build any momentum in out of conference? And obviously, you've got to win the battle of HU with Hampton. So can he do that? This is going to be the biggest test for him. And I keep being told that Howard doesn't fire head coaches. But if Larry Scott doesn't get it done this year, man, there's going to be a lot of conversation, a lot of heat around that campus on what his future is as head coach.
I think if he can't get it done, I think he's gone after this. I think because you're talking about a man that went to the Celebration Bowl with a team that was real stacked like that, and then they regressed with pretty much almost the same team.
Well, they had a lot of contributors that they lost. I mean, especially they lose their starting quarterback, right? And then last year they struggled with injuries at quarterback. You lose multiple contributors along the offensive line, and that was the position group that took the biggest step backwards. You lose 2 really good defensive ends, both who were at the HBCU Legacy Bowl, and you lose one of your starting corners. Obviously, you brought back Gallup and a lot of other talent, but I just think they lost key spots. Like every time you lose offensive tackles and quarterback, one of your offensive tackles was a top draft prospect. Your quarterback leaves, who's played multiple years there, and your other tackle goes and plays Power 4 football and is an all-conference guy at the Power 4 level. It's tough to replace, man, especially for a school like Howard that can't embrace the transfer portal like some other programs can.
Right. Keep on the move. Mike Vick over at Norfolk State, or the same things that you see in that as far as him being in year one of his coaching career. Uh, the some of the transfers that he brought in, some of the players that he kind of recruited, especially out of the high school, out of the JUCO system, I think he's looking to try to win right away.
Yeah.
What is the stage you hear about what's going on in Norfolk?
If I had to pick one of the two celebrity coaches to win the MEAC this year, my pick would be Norfolk State with Michael Vick. They did such a good job in bringing in transfers that have started or were major contributors at their previous institutions. You look at like Stamarian Edwards from Alcorn State, who was
Mm,
an all SWAC selection and arguably one of the best defensive players outside of Malachi Bailey for Alcorn last year. Stephen Hall from Youngstown State, instant impact addition at defensive tackle. Trayshawn Kendrick, who, if I'm not mistaken, his dad's on the coaching staff, so maybe that was just a formality here,
right.
but was a starter at William and Mary. Tyler Lineberger at offensive line, a starter at like coming in, immediate starter on the offensive line. And so you look at some of the snaps these guys have played. You also go add Jaden Kelly from UAPB, played almost 600 snaps last year. You have guys that played well. And I'll say this also, they rated Hampton. I think they landed 5 or 6 transfers from Hampton, all of which were monsters. Like the Leidenberg kid from offensive line played 750 snaps for Hampton last year, was one of their best offensive linemen. He's at Norfolk now. You lose another offensive lineman in Gwan Price. You lose Armand Vincent at wide receiver, Abe Williams at wide receiver, and Kamari Gray at wide receiver. You stole 3 receivers from Hampton.
They went across the bay and got them boys. Oh my God, that's
Yeah, and insane, right? So, and then on top of that too, you go to Delaware State and get Khalif Jemison, who played 700 snaps last year for the Hornets, a defensive back. So, all these guys are guys that I would expect, right, to come in and play immediately. Now, roster wise, looking at their roster, and maybe this changes as rosters are more updated closer to the season. Doc, right now, defensively, they returned 16 players that played 100 or more snaps last year. They also returned 9 players that played over 200 snaps and about 7 players that played over 300 snaps last year.
man.
I think Norfolk has a chance to be the second best team in the MEAC. I have my favorite in the MEAC, but if you told me that Norfolk finds a way to just get it done year one, similar to how Chinnis did, that would be my pick for like a surprise team coming out of this conference.
All right, let's head over to Baltimore. With Morgan State. Hey, we can't be drinking the Kool-Aid that Banks be giving us all the time, talking about with the quarterback and everything. You got to show me, man. You got to show me some fight, something, because they ain't showed me nothing last year. Of course, defensive wise, missing Eric Hunter was crucial because he's coming in as all-world linebacker, but really losing Elijah Williams, who is Mr. Do It, everything on that defensive line. That man played inside, outside, 3 technique. Oh my God. Like he played everywhere on that line. The issue is quarterback for Morgan. I hope Coach Wilson has addressed that issue right there. And Banks haven't said nothing to us in the group chat, nothing like that. So,
I mean, here's the dilemma, right? Because we always kind of talk about returning players and whether that's good or not, right, Doc? Is it good if you were a bad offense to return so many players?
ooh, nah.
That's the question, right? Because Doc, they've returned 9 starters offensively, 16 players that played over 100 snaps last year. But is that good, right? Because their offense wasn't very good. So how much does that really help you? Now, I really do like their running back. Jason Collins was a freshman All-American. They should be able to run the football, but at the end of the day, if you don't have a guy who can go make the throws, I just don't know how much that helps you. I still think in the secondary they're going to be okay. They still got guys. They got a guy on the secondary, Doc, that is 6'5" next year. They have
Oh.
multiple defensive backs that are 6'4", 6'5". Like they're going to have the raw talent in the secondary, but the question mark's going to be, does it all gel? And also too, I don't know if you can replace a guy like Elijah Williams. He's irreplaceable.
No.
Can you at least replace him by committee? Can you have a bunch of guys that add up to the impact that he made on the defensive line? And also too, you arguably return. I would make an argument. It's probably between him, Jeremiah Williams, and Kelby Givens that Eric Hunter's the best defensive player in HBCU football coming back.
That's a lot to say right there. And we talk about Elijah Williams that he was invited to a rookie mini camp with the Vikings.
Got signed immediately.
Balled out as got signed immediately to the Vikings. Let's hope he stays on there past the 75-man roster cut, because if he makes that last cut, they got a good one on their hands right there. And
they did add 2 good defensive linemen. Just real quickly, Doc, they added Demarion McCoy from Lafayette and Chris King from Monmouth, 2 guys that saw a lot of action last year at both their programs. So maybe that they did bring in some experience to help replace Elijah. So maybe the defense isn't just as good. And also too, Coach Sewell is so good in terms of scheming up his defenses, and you give him back a versatile piece like Eric Hunter, where you can put him at so many different positions. Maybe the defense is just as good. They've returned a lot of offensive talent, but Doc, at the end of the day, if you can't throw the football and you don't have any stability at quarterback, it's really, really hard to go win a championship. And that's been the thing, like you said, that has kept Morgan from reaching his full potential.
Mm-hmm. Let's head on down to what Josh called it, Bull City, Durham, North Carolina Central.
This is the one right here.
All right, man. Trey Oliver has done a hell of a coaching job. Of course, replacing all-world Davis Richard with Walker Harris. We've seen flashes. It seemed like he's a good QB. In some games, he did take a step back in certain games. But he lost. Trey Oliver lost a lot too to transfer. He didn't lose a lot this year because he lost it last year. Remember, he lost a lot last year. He did.
They returned 9 offensive starters from last year.
And this is without Jamari Taylor, y'all, who's
Jamari Taylor
is
the one. And they returned 5 to 7 starters. They rotated a lot, Doc. They started guys in certain games, just depending. So they have 5 to 7 guys with starting experience coming back defensively. If you used it, because we like to use like the 100 snap, kind of thing. They've returned 14 players defensively that played 100 snaps last year. And offensively, if you do it like that too, they returned 13 players that played over 100 snaps last year. They're going to be really good, man. And I'm telling you, I got to find the kid's name. I want to make sure I get his name right here. There's a kid who I think is going to be the breakout player in the MEAC. Remember the name Chris Mosley?
Okay.
At running back. He's out of Cisco College. He came out of Fort Worth, Texas, in Centennial High School. The kid, listen, that's a breakout player right there.
Oh, yeah. I've seen him when they played. Lone Star, because they're all in the same district. And Cisco has never been. Ranger and Cisco has never been a hotbed for Texas JUCO football, but to hear his name come out and then to go to Central, that's a reach right there.
Doc, so he only got to see limited action last year, obviously, right? Because you have Jamari Taylor. He had this was his limited action last year, Doc. He had 1 carry against Elon. His first carry, he took it 80 yards for a touchdown. He got 2 carries against Campbell, two touches, 75 yards and a touchdown. Played Like one drive against VUL, 35 yards and a touchdown. And then against Howard, got some burn and still went 9 for 42 in limited action and had a receiving touchdown in that game.
That dude had 200 yards. Just
200 yards on like 20 attempts and 4 total touchdowns, just playing behind Jamari Taylor, who was one of the best players in the MEAC last year.
Man, that's crazy.
I think crazy. I'll say, like, I don't want to put unrealistic expectations because that team that won the Celebration Bowl was so good, right, with Davius and all that. I think in terms of just on paper, this team could potentially be better than that team.
Ooh.
Just as we sit here in May, right? And I'm not I don't want to, do any hot takes, but like just looking at it from a football standpoint with all their returning talent, they like NCCU. If Trey doesn't win the MEAC this year, it is a disappointment. He should walk to the Celebration Bowl, and we should finally, hopefully, fingers crossed, get that Jackson Central rematch that we should have had that for 2 years now. So it's time to meet in Atlanta and finally settle it.
Oh man. Now we head on down to Orangeburg, the Kings of the MEAC from last season, South Carolina State, Chennisberry, year number 2, at the helm. What we got over there? We first and foremost, the signal caller is gone. Eric Phoenix is out of there. He has no more eligibility. The running backs, look, what is going on in Orangeburg, and what is Chennis talking about doing in year 2?
I'll say this. I mean, one of the most inconsistent programs in terms of updating the roster of all time. I don't know if they even had to update the roster last year, to be honest with you. I'll say this. I think they're going to be good, but I think we see a massive step back just because, right, of the familiarity you got with Eric Phoenix and quarterback. I really do think that helped Chennis' first year. And then you lose a guy like Caden High. I believe Carter ran out of eligibility too, the transfer from ETSU. Yeah. Justin Smith-Brown out as well. They're going to have to replace almost their entire receiving core. They have some young guys that are promising, Doc, but you can't do anything without all the experience they had. I think running back, they're going to be good. It seems like South Carolina State just finds a way to bring running backs back every year. I will say this. I think Stubblefield has a chance to be really good, though.
Yeah.
The kid can spin it, man. Listen, and at the end of the day, I don't put a lot of stock into where transfers came from outside of a few programs. If you find a way to get an O lineman out of North Dakota State, they probably can play. If you find a way to get a running back out of South Dakota State, they can play. If you find a way to get a wide receiver out of, X program, like if you get a quarterback out of Incarnate Word, the kid can ball.
Right.
They ain't recruiting bums at Incarnate Word at quarterback. And I think you saw that when he had to start in, what was it, the last, I think it was the last game of the year against Norfolk, where he threw for almost 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, had 2 rushing as well as that, 9 touchdowns, 2 picks last year in limited action. The kid's
we saw it last year when they played against Morgan State.
Yep.
Phoenix went out the game, and Stubblefield, they destroyed that Morgan team. Destroyed them.
He in limited. He had 7 passes with 3 total touchdowns against Morgan.
Yeah,
what you do with that?
And we watched that. Was that the Halloween game right there?
I don't know.
Was it?
No, that was the week before the last week of the season. Remember the Halloween game was Central. Remember they played Central on that Thursday night.
Yeah, Thursday night.
And that was to come back. So that was in November when Phoenix was battling that injury.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I thought it was the Halloween game. Oh my God. Yeah. They played Morgan.
It's a much different skill set because Phoenix went to statue, right? Phoenix could move when healthy. I think the injury kind of hurt him late in the season, getting banged up and limiting his mobility. But Stubblefield's a true athlete back there. It can move, but he doesn't have the height and that kind of like prototypical frame that you got with Phoenix, where he was like tall, lean, had the arm. Stubblefield's probably 5'11", 6
5'11". Yeah.
200 pounds, shifty. I'll be very curious to see how Chennis does he change the offense just a little bit to play into that athleticism that You had a little bit with Phoenix, but I think it taken to the next level with Stubblefield. But I think, Doc, the question for them is defensively. How do you replace Aaron Smith? How do you replace those corners?
Yeah.
Defensively is where I got the question marks. Offensively, they should be fine. They're going to run the football. Stubblefield can spin it. But what is South Carolina State defensively next year compared to what they were last year? They do return. You remember the D tackle that gave Jackson fits in the Celebration Bowl, the number 0?
Yeah, big
Barker.
guy.
Barker comes back next year, so he'll be a really nice piece in the middle of the of the defensive line. But linebackers, secondary is where my question marks come in for South Carolina State.
Yeah, that guy was playing. He was playing the center guard combo, and was wrecking that. I thought about this, just figured it out. I remember this. North Carolina Central might be hurt a little bit defensively because they lose Courtney Cord as defensive coordinator, which goes over to East Greensboro to A&T. But other than that, in the MEAC, you have Central winning the MEAC. I'll say this: I have Central. I will have Central winning the MEAC. I want to see what Vic does in the first year because I think he could actually take it in his first season, and really elevate that Norfolk program to new heights. But we shall see. We shall see. One last thing before we roll off of here. What are your thoughts about the 12 games starting next year?
Love it.
Automatic.
It should have always been a thing. The fact that it wasn't was stupid. Like, why can't the FCS play 12 games? And it gives all these schools more flexibility in terms of scheduling games to make money and also to get maybe an extra home game or be more creative with their out-of-conference scheduling, especially the bigger conferences. You look at like the CAA, the SWAC, teams that, conferences that have 12-plus members. Gives you a little bit of added flexibility. Now, it does kind of put pressure on smaller conferences, though, right? Because the conferences like the MEAC with 6 teams, damn, man, like we got to schedule like 8 games now or 7 games to get this schedule there. So it's a little tough for those type of conferences. But, Doc, I'm really hoping the FCS as a whole, and this really isn't an NCAA thing. This is a school conference thing. I really hope we take advantage of this because with our week 0 moving up, right? If you remember, Doc, I don't know if you watched FCS football for like how long you kind of tuned in. If you remember when the FCS kickoff game started, it was the only week 0 game. And what would happen is it was played on school campuses and it would be some of the best teams in the country. That's where you would get the Jacksonville States versus A&T when A&T was winning Celebration Bowls. You would get North Dakota State at Montana when both teams are coming off of like national title runs. You would get those massive matchups. And now it's kind of been diminished because you got the SWAC MEAC Challenge and FCS kickoff game. Well, guess what, man? Now, Doc, we got to compete with Hawaii on week 0. And now we got to compete with Notre Dame and Florida State going to play in damn Ireland. And we're competing with all this stuff. I would love to see the FCS take advantage, man. Let's really grasp this moment because there's TV slots now. There's money. There's sponsors. There's a chance to put your brand because, Doc, you know this. Us in this chat or watching this show are FCS HBCU football fans. So guess what? We're going to tune in regardless.
Right.
Put the game on damn Tuesday night. Guess what? Everybody in the chat, me and
It's
Doc
gonna
are
be watching the game.
Go ahead. You could play Central versus Jackson on Monday afternoon at 3:30 p.m. and we're all going to be finding a way to tune in. But guess what? The average fan's not. But Doc, you know how it gets toward the season, right? Starting in August, every single college football fan is just fiending for the product of football.
Just for a game of football.
You could put a JUCO game on ABC. That thing is doing like 2 million views because people just want to watch organized football on television. That's why people watch the preseason.
Yeah.
Because they just fiending for some sort of football action. Make the FCS kickoff game matter. Get it out of Montgomery. Put it back on home campuses. And what I've proposed is if you don't want to move the MEAC SWAC Challenge up a week, and I've been calling this forever, why don't we finally have FCS national champion versus Celebration Bowl champion?
Yeah.
Week 0, that should be the FCS kickoff game every single year. And what should happen is we either, if you want to keep it at a neutral site, cool. Let's have it in Atlanta. Let's have it in Kansas City. Let's have it in Nashville at the site of the national championship. That would be dope, right?
Yeah.
Big cities. It would be on ABC, prime time, get a sponsor. Let's go make some money, right? Because Doc, everyone could talk about, oh, no one cares about this team or this team. If you're telling me right now, let's not even use the teams from last year. Let's go back 2 years ago. Doc,
Yeah.
you're telling me ABC primetime, South Dakota State FAMU in Nashville, in Atlanta, ABC 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock kickoff, wanting to
we
dump 3
watching
million
it.
views.
Everybody's watching it, and not just everybody's watching it. You're gonna have it's gonna be fans up in there because North Dakota State travels, and FAMU they travel.
Yep.
It's close, mano y mano. Like that's what I would think. I mean, because if you really think about it, in FBS, the Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic is the beginning of college football season for the FBS.
And you got some big teams that played in it, right? Like you had Clemson, Georgia one year. You had, was it North Carolina versus somebody a few years ago?
Boise State in Georgia one time. You have some teams that play in that game right there in Atlanta. So it's, to me, like I just think that we're all clamoring right now to watch something on, as far as football.
And if the SWAC and MEAC want to do their own thing, that's cool. Why don't the week 0 should just be a Celebration Bowl rematch then? We'll still have the SWAC MEAC challenge. It should be, let's just say, let's go last year. South Carolina State Jackson opening up the season week 0 in Atlanta.
Oh, that would
come
be
on.
nasty.
Like, you know how easy, like it's so easy. Or make week 0 if we can have multiple games, right? And this is all just spitballing. SWAC MEAC challenge. There's 6 teams in the MEAC. The top 6 teams from the SWAC standings all face off. So you have a Celebration Bowl rematch. Second place faces each other from each conference. Third place faces each other from each conference, and all the way down till Delaware State plays the 6th best SWAC team.
Right.
Have home and homes. One year the MEAC host, the next year the SWAC host. That's all you got to do. Like, and it's just stuff like that. And then the FCS kickoff, if you don't want to do SWAC versus or Celebration Bowl versus FCS national title, all you got to do is national title rematch, or just to pick 2 good conference champions and have them face off in the FCS kickoff and pick a campus to host it on.
Hey, that sounds good right there, man. That sounds real good right there. Anything to put the eyes on the product so we can watch some football.
We just got to capitalize on it, man. That's the one thing that frustrates me about the subdivision, is that ADs and conference commissioners don't work together. Like the Missouri Valley and Big Sky aren't necessarily working together. The SWAC and the SoCon aren't working together. The MEAC and the CAA aren't working together. And so all these people are operating independently, and no one's kind of looking out for the benefit of the subdivision. And I think that's what that's why the FCS hasn't been as successful, right? It's not because the product is terrible, because every time the product's in prime time, we see the views. Both the Celebration Bowl and FCS National Championship did over 2.5 million this year. The FCS National title peaked at over 3 million this year. Like, people tune in when we're in prime time and we show off the talent we have. It's just, there's no collaboration. And when you look at the P4 conference, the reason they're able to dominate the market and dominate this sport, one, you got the brand and the money, right? And that's important. But also, too, look at how much collaboration there is. As much as the Big Ten and SEC are rivals, guess what, Doc? You know this. They're making decisions together on how to benefit each other. And I think that's what's missing in the FCS. And I would really, really like to see more conferences work together to get scheduling stuff like this and TV contracts and sponsors. And we can put the FCS on primetime week 0 and have our moment in the sun, and then get into the season. And then we end the season in the sun too, with the playoff, Celebration Bowl, and FCS National Championship. It sounds too easy in theory, man. And I really feel like we're missing the boat here to make a lot of money and put these programs on the spotlight and pedestal that they deserve.
Right. So this past season was the last year that the FCS National Championship game was here in Frisco.
Yep.
I know they're doing some renovations to Toyota Stadium in Frisco. will they ever bring it back to Frisco, or are they just doing it just because of the renovation?
They're just moving it for the renovation right now. They're going to Nashville for 2 years. It's just a 2-year deal. And then what will happen is they'll reopen bidding and everybody can bid. So Nashville can still bid to keep it if they wanted. They would just have to outbid Frisco. Based on the conversations I've heard, Frisco's arguably going to make another big push to keep it because it's huge for the city of Frisco to have these programs there for a week. And also too, it's become kind of a mainstay, right? And at one point the national championship kind of rotated through locations. You had it in like West Virginia, you had it in Chattanooga for a while, and then it went to Frisco, and it's been there since 2010. I would be very, very surprised, Doc, if they don't bring it back to Frisco, unless I'll say this: the only way it doesn't go back is if they're killing it in Nashville and the money's different and the attendance is different, things like that. Then we'll have a different conversation. But I would imagine, Doc, right now it's probably 75% going to go back to Frisco after 2 years.
Yeah, so got to be up there. Like I said, I don't stay too far from Frisco, so got to come up there. But man, I appreciate you for joining us tonight, man. Let everybody know where they can find you at and where you can tune in.
Yeah, man. The Blue Bloods, all podcast streaming platforms and YouTube, FCS Football Central on SI, si.com/college/FCS, and at Zach McKinnell on social media. Doc, you already know, man, I'm always tuned in, supporting everyone in the space, man. So appreciate you inviting me, man. And anytime, be willing to hop up here, talk some football.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate you, bro. We'll see you Swipe Media Day, man.
Absolutely, man.
All right. That is my man Blue right there. Talk some good football right there. But before we get into my diatribe from about what happened earlier today, we're gonna hit this good commercial break. Be right back.
It's your boy Doc Holliday. Become a subscriber on HBCU Overdrive on YouTube, and you can follow me on all social media platforms at HBCU_Overdrive on Twitter and Instagram. You can catch me on TikTok at Holiday1925 and on Facebook under my real name, David E. Smith Douglas. Also, when you become an exclusive family member, you get all the membership perks. You get all the exclusive members only videos, early access to new videos, member shout outs, and members only live chats. And also you can get birthday shout outs on here and win member when you become a subscriber. You can also hit the donation to the Cash App at HBCU Overdrive. You can hit the PayPal David Smith 1925, and you can hit the Zelle David E. Smith 30 at gmail.com. Remember, all proceeds go towards the channel, not the pocket.
All right. And last but not least, what are you smoking on? So, everybody, they mama, they daddy, they granny, they granddaddy, your auntie, your favorite cousin, we all tuned in. We all tuned in today to watch somewhat by far the biggest travesty to happen to our HBCUs. And what I mean, and what I'm talking about is the presidential search / vote at Florida A&M University. Now, in the beginning of this search, there were 3 finalists, Dr. Donald Palm, I know somebody, a guy named Hector, and somebody else. But at the blink of an eye, in the middle of the night, one of those board of trustees decided to add a lady, which I'm not being sexist, no, nothing like that, but added Marva Johnson, who has no affiliations to Florida A&M, who has no higher education background. Now, she's I mean, she's a Juris Doctor, so basically, she has she has something, but don't really know how to navigate higher education. Don't know how to pretty much fundraise for anything, and he add her in the middle of the night to the list as a finalist. Now, do I figure that do we figure that did we figure that she signed, she applied for the job? We don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Because, with IHL in Mississippi, them mofos can put anybody in there off the street and make them a university president. But this board of trustees, most of them is picked by the governor of the state of Florida. And we all know who the governor right now is Ron DeSantis, aka Ron the Satan. But what we watched today, and what we watched today we saw it on off script. Yes, I did tune in. I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't, but I just had to see it because I couldn't get on the Zoom my own self. That was downright diabolical. That was downright nasty. That was straight nasty work. And then you got some of these people who, majority of the people on this board are FAMU alums. They went there. Oh yeah, Blue. Yeah. Let's we talk about that too. They are FAMU alums. What y'all saw today was not anything democratically or nothing like that. That was a coup. That was a coup d'etat. That was a takeover. Because the 8 people who voted for that woman put politics over institution. You mean to tell me that that your degree says Florida A&M on the front with your name on it, bachelor's, master's, doctorate, whatever, and you chose party over institution? I had to say this, man. I had to say this. Whatever y'all smoking on, I don't want it. I don't want it. I do not want it. I don't want it as a cigarette. I don't want it as a black and mild hair. I don't want it as a blunt. I don't want it in a bong. I don't want none of that stuff. Hell, I think the people that voted for her is on crack. And then let me get back to this. You tried to strip the power of the board chairman to negotiate the contract. That's really nasty work right there. That is straight nasty work right there. No loyalty, no love. They are not allowed at the cookout. No, they not. No, they not. What we saw today, what we watched today was a coup d'etat for the state of Florida to now take over Florida A&M University. And it can happen anywhere. It can have it can happen at my beloved Jackson State, where we don't even have an independent board of trustees. Our president, y'all know our presidents get selected by 8 people that represent these schools, and the head person in IHL is an Alcorn alum. Was the president Alcorn? Where's Mr. Ford at when you need him on this issue right here? Like seriously. Like seriously. Some of the people on the board was appointed by the governor before DeSantis, Rick Scott. They put their own personal business interests, their allegiance to somebody who don't give 2 shits about them, for a woman who pretty much her wig smell like earring backs. Her wig look. What's that dog, baby? A Sherpa dog or something like that?
Oh, what?
A Sherpa dog? I don't know, but the wig just looked like something. And then to put her picture where it looked like she took some meth. Oh my God. Oh my God. We gotta do that, man. Look, we gotta do better. We gotta do better. We got to do better. This woman demanded that they pay her between $500,000 to $750,000. That was probably 500, like 300,000 more than what Dr. Robinson was getting paid when he was the president. Once the Jerami situation happened, that was pretty much the death knell for Florida A&M. That was pretty much all it took for Ron DeSantis to say, look, they can't function at school. They can't run at school the way it's supposed to be ran. So now it's our time. Well, basically it's my time to go ahead and get that school off of them. Let's go ahead and merge it with the school across the street that's on Gaines Street, Florida State. Let's just go ahead and close it all down. What do we need an HBCU for? We talking about the man. This man is the king of anti-DEI. He talking about the man that is the king of anti-wokeness. That's what he call it. So, and listening to those alums, the ones that really don't go back and forth with us, with Jackson, with anybody else in the SWAC, listening to them with hurt, right? With passion. It's like, what is going on? But we saw it. We saw it. We saw that bitch in 4K. We saw it in 4K today. And it's something. Let me see if I can find the clip on this right here. Let me find this clip. And this is from my homie. This is from the homie, Miss Danny Wright. Let's see if I can find. Let me see if I can find it, because she said a lot last night. All right.
Quick statements. I'm gonna try to run these down really quickly. All right. So first of all, we can tell that politics is driving us all crazy. It's like a circus. Okay. The only difference is that we got clowns running the show, and everyone else is sitting in the room. We the elephants pretending that we don't see the chaos. And sometimes that's okay. That's why all the black folks are learning how to line dance instead of paying attention to all the chaos going on in the circus. It makes me feel like we're in a never-ending episode of musical chairs. Except the only difference is the music has stopped and everyone is still standing around looking confused, like, what's gonna happen next? Who's gonna start the music back up? They're playing a game. The only difference is they're playing with people's lives and their livelihood. The circus has got to end. Now I want to move on to our beloved HBCUs, because I always got something crazy to say about people that talk crazy about our HBCUs. Because obviously everybody thinks the HBCUs are just a DEI project. We're just the next trends because we don't exist. We exist for no reason, right? We don't exist because of systematic and systemic exclusion from centuries ago, right? We just a phase. We're just a fad, which is amazing to me because how we DEI when we were necessary? Make that make sense. But we've turned DEI into cuss words. And so now DEI is a cuss word, but DEI is also really equivalent to blackness. And so when you see that they're trying to get rid of blackness, now what? Now what do we do? Now what do we do? Imagine getting rid of HBCUs. Imagine not having us. You wouldn't have things like peanut butter and the cotton gin and the stoplight and hair products and all the other things that are black.
Preach.
Yes. Right? Imagine a world where you've gotten rid of the things that have put people in place that wouldn't otherwise have an opportunity. But because you are now scared that your whiteness is in jeopardy, because you equate power and whiteness as one. And when you realize that blackness and brownness and other ethnicities also have power, you feel threatened. And so now your only option is to go back to the systemic and systematic racist behavior of your ancestors and then call it, oh, we can't be proud of our heritage. Not when your heritage killed off my ancestors. Absolutely not. You don't get that opportunity. It's really cute how some folks believe that HBCUs are just here for diversity points, but they forget that they were founded because the educational doors were slammed shut in our faces. Now you're saying some HBCUs shouldn't even be funded because we're too woke. But until the rest of America wakes the hell up, we're going to have Dopey Smurf and whatever. Is it Dopey, Sleepy, all the other little Smurfs running the circus telling us what we need based off of what they're afraid to lose. The irony of all this is that the rich people keep getting rich and the poor keep getting even more poor and losing the things that are necessity while the rich people keep pulling away the necessities from the people that need it the most and calling it a DEI issue. Mm-hmm. So you conveniently have ignored the accomplishments that come out of HBCUs and call it wokeness, a woke liberal agenda. There is no liberal agenda where there is no liberty and freedom. And so until we get that, and until we're at an equal playing field, we're all going to be stuck in this circus and this horrible episode of musical chairs where the music has stopped and we're all sitting around looking at each other, wondering who has the power to turn the music back on. But instead of taking away seats, I want to see musical chairs where we're adding seats. Not because of DEI, but because we're humans and we all deserve an opportunity and a chance at a better life. So excuse me while I call your whiteness anti-woke agenda bullshit and a dog whistle for racism. But that's what it is. I'm blackity black. Always have been, always will be. I'm always going to be pro-black because my blackness has got me where I am and my blackness is going to keep me going where I'm going. And if that threatens you, if that makes you afraid, then so be it. Be scared. I have to do stuff afraid. So, but don't be like Nike anymore because Nike put out an ad that had a nice Nazi trope to it. So don't be like them, but be bold enough to understand that your blackness is going to threaten the power that whiteness once made a privilege. But then again, people say white privilege doesn't exist. I'm out.
Well, she said in 7 minutes is what we saw all today. Is what we saw today, what we witnessed today. And so, if I am the alum of FAMU and alum of FAMU, and you do not approve of this, and you did not approve of this, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Are you going to mobilize and strategize? Or are you just going to sit by the wayside till somebody turn the music back on? And you start getting the dancing again. I've always said that, I said this at the election about what happened after the election, that I'm going to mind my black ass business. And I intend to do that too. But at this point, this is a travesty. This is a travesty. But again, those 8 people who voted for MAGA Marva and the one board of trustees that I interviewed 3 years ago makes me question who you really are as a man now. It makes me question who you really are as a man. Because not only do you hold a seat at the table at Florida A&M, you also hold that seat at the table at Bethune-Cookman, who is in the same situation right now, looking for a president. So, whatever y'all smoking on, I don't want it. Whatever y'all smoking on, my people over here don't want it. Y'all can keep what y'all smoking on. Because what we saw, again, like I said, was a coup d'etat. And if you don't know what a coup d'etat is, look it up. Google it. Type it in Wikipedia. Give you the whole definition right there. But again, what am I to them? I'm just a little old small podcaster. And at the end of the day, we have to mobilize and strategize to stop the takeover of our institutions. For those 8 individuals who voted for her, I hope Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger come in your dreams and slash your ankles. But we about to get up off this thing. And y'all see the missus in there because we about to tune some folks out. We are out of here. We are out of here. So, hey, babe, tell them what's going on this week. This is our second week here in Dallas, living here. We are enjoying our time. Oh yeah, nephew, I did. It was 3 years ago. It was 3 years ago. I still got the interview too. See, this is the best thing about it. Don't nothing get deleted off the internet. That bitch is on wax.
Hi, nephew.
Oh Lord. Oh Lord. What you got? What do you have to say? What do you have to say, nephew? You sound like Mr. Ford.
Drop the line.
Drop the line. Drop the line.
This mother.
She about to get you.
Fuck off, crap. Shit, I'm sick. I'm sick of that man.
Oh my man. I you know what? Let me find it and I'll put it in the group chat. I'll put it in the group chat. But anyway, man. That's for you, Crook.
I mean, he don't say, hey, good evening. I like your wig. He don't say nothing. God.
You know?
Why? What I do? Nigga, you looking for me? Here I go. What do you want? Thank you, nephew. You the only one that got my back. Golly.
Man, we appreciate Zach, aka he did say aka Blue. Well, she called him Blue Junior.
I'm Blue. That was Blue Junior.
He said he's cool with that.
Okay.
But again, man, we appreciate everybody for joining us today on this good new episode of HBCU Tonight.
BJ, I'm gonna call you BJ. Only I can call you that.
Oh man. But nah, man, we appreciate you. Make sure that you like the stream, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you want to see more of us, hey, you gotta pay the rent. Let's hit that donation button, PayPal, Cash App, Zelle. Appreciate Mr. Johnny for the super sticker earlier. I didn't get a chance to recognize you and stuff like that. But other than that, man, we are pretty much going to be at this thing. I'll probably be back on Sunday if something happens with the end of baseball coming up. Baseball tournaments coming up. Shout out to the nephew for hitting 500,000 views for his channel, man. Doing the damn thing right there. Make sure y'all check it out. But other than that, y'all be safe. Y'all be blessed. Be safe. Hug your loved ones. Love on your loved ones. For all those that said FAMU, man, keep your heads up. This ain't nothing but a storm is gonna pass by. And for the 8 people who voted for MAGA Marva, I hope you stub your toe every morning for the next 80 years. I made me sound like my man Troy. But hey, y'all know what time it is. Guess what? Hey, y'all know what it is. Be easy. I'm out this thing. Peace.